I got it.
All right. Go ahead, guys.
You're probably wondering why I called you guys here. No.
So then you talked about a turnover margin, obviously. With quarterbacks, what are some like specific things you do to coach that? I mean, some of it can be bad luck, right? I mean, what are the like specific things you do to coach turnovers?
Yeah, very few of our turnovers last year were bad luck. I mean, I do believe in them. You know, there's like to me, there's going to be the tipped ball, like a great throw, the guy makes a great play on. There's going to be, there's going to be the 50-50 ball. I think for us, a lot of them were just. I mean, you go back to the Iowa game, we're literally just running with the ball and we just fumble the ball with no contact. So I always go back to the root. Like, obviously, we know the issues of turnovers. So, like, what's the root cause? Well, it's passing efficiency, like being able to drop back and throw the ball better. And then it's just also holding the ball properly. So, anytime something's not good, like Ron Brown last year, I said, Ron, why is this like this? He says, because, we aren't coaching it hard enough. So we're trying to coach it harder. And I think at some point when you have enough good players, there's also a part of it was like, hey, if you turn the ball over, you're not going to play. And on defense, if you take the ball away, you're going to play. So I think both those things help us.
What does that mean for Nebraska? Do you expect that to be?
Yeah, I think there were some conversations about phasing it in at one point. I think some of those have dissipated, so I don't know. I think like anything else, the devil's in the details. When does that number go into effect? And what I mean by that is, Demetrius Bell got hurt in the spring game. He's out for the year. Would he count in our 105? Would he not count in our 105? If he counts in the 105, you're going to see a lot of schools, probably not Nebraska, but a lot of other schools are going to start moving those guys on. And at the end of the day, we're still supposed to be here to educate people. So my hope is that as they put this together, like we have these big things that came out of the settlement, that we put them together in a smart way where, maybe you have 140 guys on your team, but at a certain point you have to declare your 105 for that season. There's a financial component to this, whether you scholarship them or not. There's a bunch of metrics. The first $2.5 million worth of scholarships goes out of the revenue sharing. So do you want a scholarship more or not? So I've been sort of taking the approach of hey, I'm going to wait and see not the what but the how, because really finding the details is really how you find a way, the loopholes, but also how you find the best practices. So, I'd love it to be 120, but it's not going to be. So I'm going to just figure out a way to do it the best we can. So the way it works is there's no scholarship limits. So if you have 105, you can technically have 105 scholarship players now if you want to make that investment. There's some downside, there's some plus side to all that. So just, I think the movie Rudy will be hard to explain to our grandkids, because they'll be like, what's a walk-on, So, but at the same time, maybe some kids will trickle down to other levels, and FCS football and Group of 5 football will maybe be a little bit stronger. I still think there'll be some room for walk-ons. What I'll say is outside of Nebraska, where we're at 150 guys, most schools are in the 105 to 115 range. I came here and I was intent on getting to 115 because that was what was asked of me. It's just really hard because we have so many great in-state players that would walk on for us. And I've had a hard time doing that. But if it's mandated, I'll find a way. So I don't know if it's all doom and gloom. Thank you so much, man. I've asked for a cup of coffee all day. And all of a sudden, the cameras turn on, and one shows up. Like, oh, the cameras are here? Here's a cup of coffee. Let's see. But I do think that that's part of it. I do want to protect those parts of it. I mean, sometimes we're so worried that someone's going to take advantage of the rule that we just blow up everything else. And, we got guys on our team that, I got invited to Ty Han's wedding the other day. That's kind of cool for me, right? Luke Reimer just got married, started as a walk-on, I'd rather have guys that want to be here, and so I hope it stays intact. Yeah, obviously it's not the time where you want to make a change, with that being said, so I approached John earlier in the spring when we were thinking the analyst rule was going to pass. I wanted to hire another coach to work in the secondary along with Evan. So, we've brought in Rashawn Melvin, who played for me in Carolina, and he's going to work with the corners. Adam DeMichael, who was on offense last year, after the season, we moved him over to defense. Chevin, who's our GA on defense, we moved into a recruiting role. So we had kind of some musical chairs. So I reached out to John like, hey, you're out. Would you want to do this? And it was just not the right time, right? He's got a 13-year-old son. Well, Evan resigns. The job's open. We interview a bunch of people. John's 2 towns down from me at the beach. I said, hey, come down and talk to me. And I think at that point, because football season was right around the corner, I think he was ready. And, we've known each other a long time. I think it just made more sense. So his football acumen, the fact that he's been a coordinator, his intelligence, you talk to him for 5 minutes and you're like, okay, I get it. I think he's going to make our players better. I can't say too much. I mean, the way I've always approached it, whether it's a kid transferring or a coach resigning, like that's their story to tell. So, Evan can share his reasons for leaving the program, but he's a friend, he's a colleague, he's done a lot for me. I love him. I hate that the time came to an end, but it came to an end. And when things happen, it's my coaches leave, players leave, guys hit the portal. It's my job to make the program better. And so I think we got better with John. And wish Evan the best. Yeah, I could see it in his face. He was kind of like, forget like pack up the house and move. It's also, and I have a son, and I have, it's also like, what do we call this defense? And things that Tony does aren't exactly like, we're not playing 4-2 quarters. We've got 37 defenses. And, what you don't want to do, in fairness to the players, is have them walk in and they're learning a whole new way of doing things. You also don't want your secondary coach to have to teach something he doesn't know. So I think one of the things that I really respect about John is he spent the time to kind of learn. He said, I need to learn first. This guy's had one of the top secondaries in the NFL, for many years. I played against it. So, but I think what will happen, it's just really, it's a lot of credit to Tony. Tony is such a, he's like a lifelong learner. He'll keep getting better. He'll keep learning. And so I think right now John's learning the defense. Rashawn, who's going to assist him, is learning the defense. Adam's been in it. We have Kevin McGarry on our staff, who's a longtime secondary coach, who's kind of been Tony's right hand for a while. And I think what we'll see is as they learn it, John will bring some of his own experiences to bear. And I think we'll get better and better and better.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about something you said last year about Brian Ferentz. You said that you looked at hiring him when you were in the NFL. He was a free agent. I was curious if you did look into hiring him at some point.
Yeah, Brian came down. We spent some time together. I have a lot of respect for him. I think when you think back to what Brian did last year, knowing that he was fired and continuing to work, scratch and claw to the end of the year, speaks volumes about who he is. I think for us, we're pretty set in that area on the, the offensive line type area. We have Donovan Rhule, Aaron Cooling, who's been his GA's moved over in a QC spot. Keith Williams, who's been in recruiting, is now going to have some on-field responsibilities coaching with the new rule. So it wasn't the right time or place for us, and he had to end up finding a job at Maryland. But I have a lot of respect, obviously, for Coach Ferentz, Kurt Ferentz, but a lot of respect for Brian, and especially the situation he was under last year.
Hey, Coach, with the new coaching staff rules, when do you plan to kind of make a formal announcement of just all the new assignments and duties? Potentially, what could we designate who the 10 names are that will travel or be on the road?
I tried to put one out last week, but Keith and them stopped me, so you have to ask Keith. It's true.
Give a little insight on
The guys going on the road, I'll wait till I have to with the NCAA because we'll see. I want to see how things play out. Like you have to declare it every year at the academic year, so whatever day that is, I'll say that. But some of the guys that have been in the program are now going to have coaching opportunities. So Keith will now take on more role of coaching. Like Ron Brown's going to coach the fullbacks and he's going to coach the returners. Like, I'm trying to have, with our size roster, two coaches at each position who can work with the young people. Because you think about it, like if you're in the D-line room, you've got Ty Robinson, who should be on level 5 of defensive line play. And then you've got David Huffkin coming in, who's, not played football in the United States yet. You have Keona who just got here. So I want a coach in T Knight, and then that's why we hired Ira to come in. And he's a GA, but we've tried to do that. Jack Potenza's taken over the Jack linebacker spot. He did that. He did that as a GA in the spring, anticipating this because he could coach as a GA, and now he'll take over. So we've restructured a bunch. And again, the whole mentality, though, is not to have a bunch more coaches, but to have 2 coaches at every position to help aid in development. And then some of those areas, like I said, fullbacks, returners, things like that. But how exactly we're going to all lay it out, we're going to probably announce that here soon. But I'm happy to discuss things as we're here. So. Yes. Yeah, he's going to work with us on offense. He's going to work with the skill players on offense. I first met the first time I met Jamar was outside of a gymnasium at Lee Summit North, and I knew I was going to hire him someday. And then when Coach Malzahn hired him at UCF, it made it easier, right? 'Cause it's hard to hire someone away from high school. It's difficult. And then with this Rhule passing, I can also give him coaching responsibilities. But if you look at my track record, at 3 colleges, I've hired 15 high school coaches. That doesn't include Dr. Elza, who, if you were in Texas with us, she can't walk 5 feet without someone stopping her. And a lot of some of those guys, like Ira as a GA, but at Penn State, at Temple, I hired Terry Smith, head coach at the Gateway, to be our receivers coach, and the next year James hired him away from me. I went to Baylor. I hired Joey McGuire, who's now the head coach at Texas Tech, right out of Cedar Hill High School. I hired Sean Bell and David Wetzel. Sean Bell is now the quarterback coach at Houston, so that was a priority. When I got here, I hired Bob Wager, and I hired Phil Simpson. Phil Simpson was the Miami-Dade Coach of the Year coming out of Homestead High School. So, some of those guys get hired away sometimes. Phil got hired to Florida State. Bob left; he's back in Texas. But I believe in hiring high school coaches, and it's not. People think it's for recruiting. Their connections are over like a year later. It's because kids gravitate towards them. So when I spend more time with high school coaches than I do with college coaches because I'm out recruiting. So when I see one that I think is great, I say to myself, I'm going to hire that guy. And so, they come to our place and they do probably the same amount of work, except they don't have to teach class, and they make usually twice as much money. So it's a lot. I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's a great thing for us. And so I'm excited Jamar joined us. I think he'll be with us for a long time. I'm going to say it like this, if that's okay. I expect us to be good, okay? I expect us to win. I expect us to be relevant in the conference. I'm never, like players sometimes will say something to me like we're favored. I about punch them. And I say that, obviously I don't punch them. I know, in today's society. I remember my elementary coach, he punched me. I'm better for it, but anyway, I digress. I won't say 10-2 is good, because if I say 10-2 is good or 8-4 is good, I'm sitting here telling you I think we're going to lose 4 games. I want us to go out and try to win every game. Does that seem like that seems right to me? So I guess what I'm saying to you, Amy, is I expect us to be a really good team. I expect us to be competitive. I expect us to be in the mix in this conference. There's a lot of things we have to do to get that done. But, for 5-7 again, that's not going to be good enough. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? I really don't live that way, other than I'm telling you, I'm confident in this team. I expect us to be a good team. And I think we have the depth to withstand injuries. I think we have players who can make plays. And so we'll go play it out and see what happens. That's not necessarily that. I mean, it's not necessarily that. We're so much different at receiver than we were last year. It's not even. I mean, everyone talks about the quarterbacks, but our O-line last year. Our O-line was running the ball against a defense that knew we were running the ball pretty much every play, and even a couple little bubble screens that Wisconsin properly executed, all of a sudden we scored a couple points, right? So I think with the adaptations we've made in the receiving corps, playing those young guys last year, watching them develop, getting the guys who got injured, getting them back like IGC and those guys, and then adding in some guys from the portal, I think we can be a really dynamic team. And now I think people are going to have to defend the run and the pass, no matter who the quarterback is. And I think that's going to make our O-line better. And I think Fidone is a year off of 2 ACLs, and he's healthy. And all of a sudden now he can really get turned loose. And Borgature, I think, is an unsung hero. And Carter Nelson, people don't even ask me about him, but I could talk about him all day. So I just think we're way more talented. And the guys that were here last year doesn't mean they're way more talented than they were last year because they're more skilled. So the quarterback play, the guys are going to be more open. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they're not going to have to, like, some of our sacks happened last year when no one was open. And they're like, oh, what do I do? And they're kind of running around and they get the sack fumble. Like, we'll turn the ball over some. We're not going to be perfect, but we're going to be better. And the key is going to be is the defense better. And that'll be a major key. Yeah, we're playing Carter as a receiver. Our thought process was instead of making him a tight end that could split out, we'd start him as a receiver who could come in and block. So he could be like, he kind of fits in that Janier and Bonner like positionless player. But it's easier to get on the field at receiver sometimes than it is to get on the field at tight end, just learning. So because he wasn't here in the spring, we're going to put him at receiver. The other thing I told him when I recruited him, I said, hey, we're going to create a special position for you. And I'm proud that we did that. We followed through on that because he's a difference maker. And so, how much he knows is going to dictate how much he plays. But he's playing receiver. He can come into the box and be like a tight end, but he can also split outside and win. And I think he'll play a ton of football for us. And then as he grows and develops, we'll see what he is in 2 years. But right now, it's the best way to get him on the field early because he's an upgrade. Yeah, we haven't played inside as a slot because that gives us the ability to then have him, go in and still be a factor in the pass in the tight end game. He's going to have to earn his reps. The one thing that we have now is, whereas like this new college football game, we might not have a ton of guys ranked like 95 on the game, but if you're within our walls, we got a bunch of guys that can really play and make plays, and we have a bunch of guys that we think are secrets. And so I believe that we can win at tailback with Gabe Ervin. And I believe we can win with Ramir Johnson. And I believe that we can win. I know we can win with Emmett because I saw it last year. He gave us a chance to win. But I also believe we can win with Dante. And I also believe that we can win with Quentin Ives. And so they're going to have to go battle for what they want. Everyone won't be happy every day. We're not going to be able to spread the reps and the ball around to everybody. But the best guys will play. And what we do have is if we have injuries, we hope and dream about a day where we play 13 games, but also we play 16 games. And you're going to need depth. You're going to need a lot of good players to do that. I think Dylan's done a great job of just coming in and being one of the guys. Like he shows up and he works. It's probably a credit to Dom and Yvonne. Like I'm sure Dom told him, like, just go there and work. If I walk in to get my little old man workout in the afternoon, at 4 o'clock, he's usually there doing something extra. If you go in early in the morning, he's usually there throwing. But you look at our elite list every week. Heinrich's going to be on there. Everyone does things in their own way. I think the thing with Dylan is he spends a lot of time learning the football, understanding, because as a freshman, it's hard to process. It's like I was talking to Coach Osborne in his golf outing. We were talking about playing freshmen. He's like, they get really good against the defense they see every day, and all of a sudden you go to week 1, then you go to week 2, and it's a whole different defense. When they're juniors, it's easy, but when they're a freshman, there's a lot of learning. And so what Dylan has shown me is that he's willing to put that time in, and the game comes natural to him because he puts the work in. And I'd say that's really that whole room. And I think that's one of the reasons why we brought Glenn in, so that they had someone they could just go to full time. Yeah, no. I feel like it's my responsibility to give all these guys who've worked their tails off all summer a chance to show what they've done. That doesn't mean the reps can't be skewed. That doesn't mean I can't give Mitch all the 1 reps and give Robin all the 2 reps. But naming the starter and saying, "Hey, the competition is over," that comes at a. I'm sorry, flip it. But, wow, that touched a nerve. But that doesn't mean that you can't. That doesn't mean that you can't. That doesn't mean that when I announce it, right? Because the one thing I've always wanted is, the quarterback has to know that there's going to be a day where the quarterback doesn't play very well. I mean, I was at the New York Giants, and Eli Manning, the year after winning the Super Bowl, we went in the game. I think he had like 4 or 5 picks in the first half. We didn't pull him. Go play through it. And when I name a starter, I want the starter to play through it. So, so as guys, as they progress, we'll skew reps in different guys' favors. But we do have to get all 3 guys ready to play. And then whoever's the next guy, whether it's Jalen, whether it's Bodie, whether it's Luke, they've got to be ready to play. Oh, yeah. No, I think, there's a lot of people in my year at the end of the season saying, hey, Matt, and people that I trust saying, Matt, let's go get a 1-year quarterback. A lot of people are like, man, like, if we got to win. We got to win. We got to get some momentum. Let's go get a 1-year veteran senior quarterback. And I'm just always one of those guys. I'm always looking to the future. Like, what's going to be I don't care what people say about what I'm doing right now, but I care very much that when you look back at what I did 10 years from now, that most of the things I did were right, or I did the best I could, right? So to me, it seems the best thing if we look back in 10 years is to bring in young players and play them and let them play through their mistakes and eventually have a confident guy out there. So we played Heinrich last year, really his first time playing. We let him play through his mistakes. Dylan and Danny right now are playing through their mistakes. So, but to your point, you've got to have some flash now. You've got to make some plays, and you have to have the freedom to make plays. So we can't be safe. You know what I mean? Like, remember when you first started driving? Remember how you first started driving? You had 2 hands on the wheel, and you went well, you never got into a wreck, but you didn't get anywhere. Like, the key is to be able to drive real fast and go fast and take chances without making a ton of mistakes. And so that'll come as we go. That'll come as we go. Yeah, Bly probably won't start camp when we start. He'll probably be about 2 weeks in. So he's trending in a really good spot, much better than I thought he would be. I thought it would be 3 games into the season. They give you those ranges, right? 3 to 5 months and all that. But Bly's on his way back. Obviously getting Sierra in here, who getting him in for a couple weeks helps. It's a great job by our staff in recruiting him. Then you have guys who play Jeremiah Charles, Malcolm's flexibility. I mean, I really believe we have enough good players. I think we got to go play well, but we have enough good players. I think that'll be a good battle. And again, talking about 16-game seasons, the key is going to be to play multiple guys. You're going to have to play a lot of guys so that players are ready when the time comes. I'd have to try to talk to Tony about that. At the time there wasn't. We have some guys we cross-train, like Mario Buford. We were cross-training Mario as a corner and as a safety because, the way we play that defense, because we don't match up. We play like the corner has one, the safety. That field safety is really like a nickel, like a corner. He's got to be a smart, versatile player. And so that's why Malcolm's played that. So to go from there to there, so Mario's done that. Dwight Boodle's a guy that has a lot of talent. Just getting him focused on the day-to-day grind of this has been our challenge. It looks like he's coming along. So there's enough guys to do it. Well, some guys walk in your room, they say hello to you, and you can just tell, like, hey, that guy must be like a Major League Baseball player, must have played quarter. Like, this got it. He definitely has it. Now, how much he knows and how far along he is and all that, like, we'll have to see when we get started. He'll also have to fight for reps. But, I think when you're playing young quarterbacks, having a guy who's won and played, like, you draft a young quarterback, you usually put another veteran in the room with him to teach him just the hows and the whats and the whys. One thing I said to Jalen, I said, hey, I know it's going to feel different, the Big Ten from where you were, but, football's football. Once you start playing, you'll play. So I'm glad he's there. What role he'll play, what opportunities he get, I really don't know yet, part of the summer is it's when they start throwing the football around and doing 7-on-7s, like we can't be there. So I don't have a feel for where he's at, but I like his juice and his demeanor and obviously the things that he's done. I've never had a player walk in our building for a camp and gotten more text messages from the media, from other coaches who didn't want to play against him anymore, saying, "Hey, you should take this guy." Like, he's obviously got a lot of juice. He's won a lot of games, and so I'm glad he's on the team. Yeah, I mean, Ryan Callahan's been an absolute master. I mean, Ryan Callahan, in 2 years, I don't know if anybody's done a better job in difficult circumstances with eligibility and things like that. And Ryan's been amazing. And I think I got a text from him a day or two ago saying he had finally gotten his visa, and I think he'll be here like July. I'm looking at Susan. July 27th, he'll be here.
I have to go in a very different direction in the Wayback Machine. He played against Oregon in the '95 Rose Bowl.
38-6 Penn State.
So beyond the score and Kajana Carter and you guys winning, you played a team that in that era that was kind of what looked back on now as the start of Oregon as we know it. What did you think of Oregon? Remember of what you thought of Oregon, what you thought of it then, and what we've all seen it become over the last 30 years.
Yeah, that's great. That was Rich Brooks. That was. I remember they had the bright green uniforms and didn't know much about them, and obviously we were better than them that day. But you look at what Oregon's done. It's been impressive, and it's been over time and over years. There was a time where I went to Baylor instead of going to Oregon, and so I obviously know them intimately well. My good friend Eric Riddell is one of the ADs there, but they've been able to thrive and win under multiple coaches. Like, even think about Dan's a great friend of mine. I think Dan's gone 11-3, 12-2 in the last 2 years. But right before him, Mario Cristobal, take out COVID, he went 11-3 and 12-2. Like, this isn't like a new phenomenon. They've just been winning, right? And they've been winning and winning and winning, and got to play for the national championship game. I think when you go back through that, Mike Belotti's a great coach. I think you really have to give the onus and credit, a lot of it, besides maybe to Nike and to their partnership. I think you have to give it to Chip. I mean, I thought he revolutionized that offense when he came in with Akili Smith when he was the offensive coordinator, then obviously what he did as a head coach. And there's players now that we try to recruit that you can't tell them Oregon's not the coolest place in the world because they've lived through that era of multiple uniforms, multiple jerseys, cool offense. I mean, that's what they know.
You haven't had a ton of recruiting battles with them, though you've had a couple, and you've had some wins. What is it like recruiting against them these last 2 years, especially over the last year since the news that they were joining the league?
I don't ever, it sounds corny, but I don't ever see it as recruiting against people. To me, I'm always just recruiting for us. But, I know Dan and their staff, they came from the SEC. They recruit like the SEC way. They know how to get it done. The problem in Oregon will never be good players. They'll have a lot of good players.
And lastly, when Troy mentions to a local audience, albeit the NIL budgets and those sorts of things, and I get it's all local politics, trying to raise money for you guys and you folks, but he references $23 million as Oregon and Ohio State's budgets. We're only 2 years removed from Nick and Jimbo wanting to kill each other over similar comments. So did you hear from Dan? Did you hear from Ryan? Like, why, it used to be uncouth to say such things about other places. Like, is this just the world now? Yeah, it's just the world now. I mean, and at the end of the day, like, I only heard one. When I said the quarterbacks cost $1 million, I got a bunch of FBS coaches were mad at me because they said all their quarterbacks came in and said I won $1 million. But a bunch of SCS coaches were happy because they said that, their donors were like, hey, I'll give you $10,000 to go get a quarterback. So, but it's the reality. I'd much rather be transparent. Like, I hear all the time people tell me I don't really believe in NIL. I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe in it? You might not agree with it, but it is what it is. And so, I would love it if all of us had the same amount, because then you could really see who could recruit and coach. If you're asking me to recruit against a team that's got twice as much money to give players as I do, then I'm not going to win very often, and that will then affect game day. But we're blessed at Nebraska. We have a great setup with 1890. Tom and Sean Pede have really stood in the gap and provided us a lot in a time where we don't have it. But make no mistake, we're not at the level of those guys. Like, we got a long way to go, and so that truth has to be put out there. People need to hear the truth. Like, you might not like the truth, but you have to hear the truth. And the truth is, we're doing great, but we got a long way to go. We got to get a lot better, because I'm pretty sure Oregon, Ohio State, LSU, the teams that have that type of money, they're not sitting still now. They're saying, hey, someone's going to try to catch us. And so I think Nebraska is a great place, and I think we should get the best players in the country, and NIL is one of the ways to do it. So we got to just keep chasing those guys.
More than just Oregon, though, in the
West Coast schools, you have the other three. Does that change recruiting for you guys? Do you think that opens more doors maybe on the West Coast?
Well, you look back at Nebraska's heyday. George Darlington would go to the West Coast and bring back, great players from California. I think knowing that we're going to have games played where guys can go back home and play, that should help us, right? We've kind of dipped our toe a little bit into California in the last year. I think as we're finding our rhythm, understanding that Donnie's connections go, be it Hawaii, be it California with Tony, be it Nevada, Utah. Those are places that we can recruit. It's an easy trip. It's a really easy trip to get from LAX to Omaha or get from LA to Lincoln. And so, the changing in recruiting has affected a little bit more like, hey, where are the areas that we can go? We love Texas, and we're still doing well in Texas. But our kids are never going to play a game in the state of Texas. But California, they will. So we take that into account.
How long will it take you guys, do you think, to kind of find that rhythm and maybe whether it works, whether it's conversing where kids are saying, I can stay in California and play in the Big Ten? Like, how long do you think that process is?
I don't think there's an end goal. I think every year you look at yourself and you say, hey, what are the positives we have? What are the challenges we have? And I think you're always just adapting. Like, we're going to move from NIL to rev share, right? And they told me NIL was going to be dead when rev share started. And now they're saying NIL is not. So I just think every day I just wake up and say, hey, what are the rules today? And then we adapt, and that's why, Haven's back there, Susan's there, Troy's there. I mean, you have to have really smart administrators that are helping you figure out this, because one bad recruiting class, let me say this again, not ranked recruiting class. I don't care about the ranking. Am I getting the players I want? Like, we got a player recently that, like, I literally, if we would have, like, very often, rarely do I tell you I'd have lost sleep. Like, I love a kid, and he committed to us. He fits us. He might not fit someone else, but he fits us. And some of the guys that we recruit, they might not fit us. So, to me, it's ever changing, right? Based upon, and then we'll start playing a couple years. And is the Big Ten going to look more like the Pac-12, or are the Pac-12 teams going to start to look more like the Big Ten? What's getting into the playoff going to mean? How affect? Like, none of us know this. So, you have to build your team to play well in the playoffs. So, I'll just try each year try to adapt and try to be a little bit better than I was the last year.
Matt, you referenced the turnover issues last year. What are you doing different this year in practice drills about turnovers? Like, some coaches would have their players carry a football to class with them 24/7. I mean, are you doing any drastic changes from last year?
Yeah, I think we started every practice with some version of ball security and ball takeaway drills. I think the biggest thing is, we put in some sort of like instant corrective measure when something does happen. Sometimes coaches have a tendency to be like, they drop the snap and they're like, hurry up, get on the ball, let's get this playing. We got rid of that. We're like, no, we're gonna, like, that is a sin to our team. And so, really, if I'm being honest, we went back to a lot of the things we did at Temple. Somewhere on the way we got a little bit, I don't know, NFLified or maybe too soft, and we went back to that. And then, more than anything else, though, the number one thing is the players believing in it. When the players start seeing, Gabe running with the ball like this, and they start saying, like, high and tight, that's when it changes. Or when guys on defense start getting on each other because they're not punching at the ball, that's when it starts to change. And so I believe that our players, I keep telling them, like, everything you go through in life prepares you for something unless you ignore it. So losing all those close games last year, and some of them have done it multiple years, and having a minus 17 turnover ratio, like, guys, if we would have been even, we might have won 9 games. It's ridiculous. And I don't think we were necessarily a 9-win team. That speaks to the credit of a lot of good things we did. But one thing messed it up. And so we'll fix it. We'll fix it. One of the things was less media access. It was actually more, no. And it wasn't really that night. Okay, I met him. Then the next night we got together, and honestly, Trev had asked me to put together, like, hey, what are the things you think we can improve? So we always keep that. Like, we're always, just like I'm always saying for us, like, hey, what are the next things we need to do as a staff? And who are the next guys I want to get? Like, when a coach was gone, I wasn't sitting there like, oh gosh, we just lost our secondary coach. Who's out there? It was like, man, hey, hey, call him, call. So I think those are my jobs, Susan put that list together, and, then when Haven joined us like a week later, then I was like, hey, it's nice to meet you. I'm going to send you a quick email. And I emailed him that list, right? And so a lot of what we've been trying to do is just modernize everything, right? Whether it's been like nutrition, staff size, but some of our practices and policies and just get everything into like up to date with best practices. What I like about Troy is that he listens to those things. It could come across like you're complaining, right? Like, man, this stinks. But really what I'm saying is, hey, I believe the best way to make something good is to eliminate the things that are bad. Like, everyone wants to just focus on the good things. I'm always like, hey, okay, like, how do we win a bunch of games this year? Don't turn the ball over. Eliminate the bad stuff, and the good stuff will flourish. And so for me, it was, hey, here are the areas of opportunity. Here's the places I think we can get better at. Here's the things I think we can do better. And what I really like about Troy is, besides the fact that he listens, he surrounds himself with really good people. So we bring in Haven, who's played at Auburn, who's been at Illinois, who's been at Ball State, who's been at Washington. We bring in Seth, who's been at Baylor, been at A&M. They've been at all these like places. So when you start talking about how to run your camps, or you start talking, like, I take camp really seriously, and I don't take a cent. It's not to make money. I take it for, like, I want 4,000 kids coming through our camp. Plus, I think we have 100 girls coming Saturday. To our girls 707 camp, and we would have done a high school version, but the NCAA wouldn't allow me to do a high school version of girls camp, which it makes no sense, but that's what they said. So I just like the fact that you brought in all these people with all this experience now, who you say, hey, I think this is a problem, and they've got 3-4 solutions, right? And so, so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I like that about Troy, and I like the fact that he's invested, right? I like the fact that, like, he comes over to my office and checks in with me. I like the fact that, like Haven walks through the halls and the players know his name already, right? I like the fact that Susan's on a visit right now to Indiana and Purdue, and she drove over here to be at media day, and then she's driving back to the site visit. Like, just the work ethic of our administrative staff is elite, and so, and then to win, you got to spend money. Like, balancing the checkbook does not equal winning. Having the money and spending the money on the things it takes to win wins. And so I want Amy to win, and I want John to win, and I want all of us to win. And so having a guy like Seth, who's been at a place like A&M, that knows what you have to do. And then Troy was just in the national championship game. So I think we have a really stellar staff to join the guys like Dennis LeBlanc, who I trust with my life. Like, I'm excited about where that's all at. I prefer it not to be a whiteout. They didn't have the whiteouts when I was there. When I went back as an assistant coach and I was calling plays, it was just so loud there. Obviously they've added the whiteout game as they've gone, but Penn State will always be a special place to me, right? It's where Julie and I met. We just had our 25th wedding anniversary. We were silly kids that didn't know anything from anything at the Chili's on Allen Street. I'm grateful to James, the job that he's done at my alma mater. I mean, sometimes it's ridiculous. I hear people give him a hard time. I mean, Penn State's a nationally relevant program year in and year out, and he's going to have them in the playoffs probably year in and year out. Pat Kraft's their AD is one of my best friends. We went through war together at Temple, so it'd be fun to go back there. But it was really fun. Was beating Penn State in 2015. It was really fun to see all my Penn State friends and tell them, hey, keep your head up. Your guys played hard. So I look forward to going back there and seeing family, friends. And I don't even know when we play there. Do we play there 26 or 20? But, so it'll be great. But, I've made one. I'll just tell this to the staff that has this all the time. Honestly, on a personal note, like, I've made one. This could be my last year coaching. We don't know what happens in life, right? And I've really seen that a lot lately. I've just made a decision. Like, I really like these guys. I'm going to make this the most fun year I've ever had coaching, and that might mean I even yell a little bit more. Who knows? But I really like these guys. I love these guys. And I don't know, did the Chasing 3 thing come out? The video come out? Like, for Tommy to have the courage to open up and talk about, just kind of the journey he's been through. For Jamari to talk about what he's been through. That's a guy that was in the portal. I got here, I had to go get him and pull him out. So I really love this group of guys. And so I plan on us having a lot of fun, and that might not be the great answer, Amy, when people ask you what's your goal this season, but that's my goal, because I know if I have fun and the players have fun, and we know we're going to work hard, we'll be pretty good.
Thanks, guys.
I didn't get to talk about the alternate uniforms yet. No, I'll do it later. Forget it.